asked me to come do this.
And that, and I was really excited to have you here in honor of the 150th anniversary of the Metis Federation.
Yes.
And then just start talking about you're connected to everybody.
Yeah. The first thing I thought that we could start with though was the flag. Yes. You know, Crystal, because Cuthbert Grant was my great uncle with how many greats, and he was the Metis leader in 1813 when they present the Northwest Company, not the Hudson Bay Company, gave the Métis this flag. Mind you, I guess I can go on to tell you that. I mean, don't have to tell you again and then do it again.
So we're going to start.
You know, we can start there.
Well, so we'll start with that. We're just going to go. You're a professional.
I'm not.
So I'd like to welcome everybody to our 10th or 11th Culture Days event here in Flin Flon, in Creighton, and Denier Beach, and Baker's Narrows, and we're so excited to be able to have a dear friend of mine, Ron Burwash, here, who is here to talk about his tremendous family history in connection with the Métis community. And this is wonderful in honor of the fact that in Manitoba we're celebrating 150th anniversary of the Manitoba Métis Federation. So this is Ron Burwash.
Yes, thanks, Crystal. Thanks for having me here, and it's great to do it. It's the 150th anniversary of Manitoba, actually. You know, since we came into Confederation in 1870. Anyway, we just thought we'd talk about the flag first, because everybody knows this flag is called the Infinity flag, and it represents the Manitoba Métis Federation. But there's two flags. There's a red one, like where the blue is red is all red. But this flag was presented to my uncle. He's a great uncle to me. How many greats? About 4 or 5, I would think now, way back to 1813. The Northwest Company, not the Hudson Bay Company, gave them this flag.
Right.
So when they got the red one from Hudson Bay Company, I'm not exactly sure what year that was. Anyway.
Who was your uncle?
His name was Cuthbert Grant. Cuthbert Grant was the Métis leader in 1813 when this flag was presented to the Métis. So, of course, Métis people made pemmican, and in order to make, you know, they sold it, you know, and we can go on about what pemmican is, but anyway, I want to get on with this story here about the flag since we're talking about the flag. But anyway, in 1816. There was a battle north of Winnipeg called the Battle of the Seven Oaks, or the Battle of Frog Plain, whatever you want. There was, I think his name was Governor Semple. Robert Semple is the name, and he had 21 followers, went to stop the Métis from selling pemmican. So Cuthbert Grant was there, of course, with the Métis guys. They were trying to sell this the pemmican, and because they needed the money, you know, it helped. And Hudson Bay Company didn't want them to sell it to anybody else but their own trappers. But Métis were willing to sell it to anybody that wanted to buy pemmican. So anyway, a battle happened, and Robert Semple and 21 of his followers were all killed.
Wow.
Some people think it was a slaughter or whatever, but I guess the Métis were just defending their rights there. So there's a lot of discussion on that today. So. So anyway, Cuthbert Grant flew this flag at that battle, and so now it became the symbol for the Métis Federation for our flag. So
interesting. Okay, so Ron, we were just chatting a little bit about your family history. So Louis Riel, of course, you know, such an important part of Canadian history and Manitoba history. I know you're going to present us a song at the very end of our interview today that you heard from your grandmother.
That's right, yes. And not only my grandmother, there was people around Boggy Creek that knew it, but my grandmother was pretty much the only one that I can remember as a young boy that knew all the words.
Yeah.
The Putro family, the Carrier families, there's even some Carriers here that are from there. Their families knew parts of the song, but nobody seemed to be able to put it right together as a whole song. So my grandmother knew it all, and she gave me the words to it.
I remember Ron coming to my office and sharing this song with me, and I just think it's such an important part of our history. You know, it's such an important part of the story. So I'm excited for him to share that with you later on. In terms of your family, your dad, you have some really great stories to share about stories that he was told from his family about coming as a young man in Manitoba, living in Manitoba. And do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess I could. He come to work here, but he like I said, most Métis people weren't big farmers. They didn't want to be farmers. They just wanted to live off the land and whatever. So it was tough work, you know, like he used to work around, but he trapped,
Yeah.
So I used to sit and listen to a lot of trapping stories and stuff like that, you know.
Where did he trap?
He trapped in the Duck Mountain.
Okay.
See, my dad was born in Sash Looms, Manitoba.
Okay.
In 1909.
Okay.
And all 7 families left Sash Looms in 1908. Of course, that was my dad's grandfather, and another 6 or 7 families left to go to Boggy Creek, St. Clair area on the edge of the Duck Mountain. Probably so that they could hunt and fish and raise livestock and whatever.
Okay.
So anyway,
okay.
He couldn't go. I remember my great uncle telling me my grandmother was sitting on the river crying, but they had, you know, and she was pregnant with my dad, and they had to wait because they had signed a contract in those days, I guess, to work for somebody for another 6 months. So they couldn't come along. So my dad, that's why my dad was born in Saint Eustache, not in Boggy Creek area where the rest of his 12 more brothers and sisters were born.
And where is Boggy Creek?
That is 22 miles north of Roblin.
Roblin,
yeah,
okay.
On the edge of the Duck Mountain. So, that's where that is.
Okay,
now, so.
Yeah. And you were telling me there's some great stories that you know of the early days of the Métis with the York boats and the oxen, and so share some of that.
Well, my dad told me, like his grandfather and his dad, probably his dad, like my great-great-grandfather, made the wheels for the Red River carts. And the Red River carts, they could carry about 1,000 pounds.
That's something.
You know, and then of course they were made so that they would float, you know, because they could wrap those wheels up with buffalo hide and whatever to make them more buoyant. You know, they wouldn't have to unload them. If it was a deep river, they would float. The oxen could pull those carts across the rivers. If it was deep in there, they would float, so then away they'd go.
That always amazes me in and of itself, really.
And my great-grandfather told my dad, and he told me, of course, it used to take them 6 months from Red River. They would load up their Red River carts with, I say trinkets, but that's axes, rifles, muskets, powder, bullet, lead, whatever trappers might need way up in the Northwest Territories, further up, like Edmonton. They'd go to Edmonton, and probably it was taken further than that from there. But 6 months it took them there and back with the Red River carts to make that trip, and then they'd come back loaded with the furs, you know. Also, my great-grandfather, being the kind of guy that he was, he was asked to head up an expedition by the I'm not sure who, would have been Manitoba government, maybe, I'm not sure, to look for Sir John Franklin.
Really?
It never happened, though.
No.
It didn't happen, because, you know, but he was supposed to head up an expedition to go after him, but you know, since now they found him, but way back, like my great-grandfather was born in 1859. It's a long time ago, but you know what? He died in 1957, and I was 7 or 8 years old, and so I don't really say I really remember him well. I was to his place a few times, but my brothers and sisters know him. They can remember him very good. So, you know, it's a long time ago, and he said he used to tell my dad he didn't fight at Batoche with his cousin Riel, but I've heard other families say, yeah, he was there. But you're not going to admit that. Nobody would ever want to admit that.
That's so interesting.
Another story about him that I wanted to tell you, I started to tell you about, is he worked on those York boats, which is very, very hard work, and they had to pack a lot of stuff all the way from Red River all the way up to Churchill or York Landing, I guess, way up there. And they would, his nickname was Dit la Chouette, which means says the owl. And I did see on his Hudson Bay records, like work records that his name was on there, like as a as a guy. Deep La Chouette.
La Chouette.
Yeah. Says the owl.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So that's what that.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. Such interesting. So then your family, your own personal family, ended up settling in northern Manitoba. Flin Flon, Manitoba is located 8 hours north of Winnipeg, the city of Winnipeg, and it's predominantly a mining community. But at the beginnings of this community, which is only about 85 years old at this point, sort of the founding fathers of the community really thought it was important to attract people, this is my understanding, that could really excel and support the community in really special ways. And so if you were a really good hockey player, that was celebrated. If you were a really good tenor or a bass in a choir, that was celebrated. So it was really built on the celebration of excellence. And I say here in Flin Flon, you know, the sports culture and heritage is sort of embodies our community. But you have some interesting stories about the hockey, hockey world. You guys
That's true. I did play for the Bombers from 1966 to 69. But the reason, like, my dad come up here wasn't so much for that. He just came here because he was trapping, and it was tough. Maybe he had some tough years trapping, and so he came here in 1944 or 45. He couldn't get in the army. They told him, "We've got 3 brothers there, and we'll call you if we need you." And he had 5 kids at home, so they didn't want to take him then. So he come here, and of course it was a lot easier than cutting down oak trees and clearing land and working around for farmers or whatever and trapping. So that's kind of.
So did he work for the mine?
He did work.
He
here.
did.
Yeah,
he did.
Work here.
Okay, good.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's the mine has given a lot of people some good lives. That's for sure. And so tell us a little bit about your hockey career, with some of the hockey, because those were exciting times.
Well, I played with some pretty famous guys like Bob Clark and Reg Leach, Jerry Hart. They were, friends of mine, and so I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
You can go back. I guess maybe I should have tried a little harder. Well, but I mean the NHL wasn't what it is today. So I didn't. No. You just didn't put the importance on it. But the guys like Bob and Reg and Jerry, that was their driving ambition was to play in
Bobby
the NHL.
Clark, well, I think what I find really interesting is, like, all of us, whether it's you with hockey or myself with music, is that Flin Flon was able to be a place where you could play with some really amazing colleagues. Like you had a chance to play a really interesting game. Here in your own hometown, or did you travel back then as well?
For the Bombers? Oh yes, we traveled all over Western Canada. Yeah, we played, and then we even played down east. We lost, but the year that in 1969 we won the Western Canada Championship, but we were an outlaw league because they had just started up 3 years prior to that, and we challenged the Montreal Junior Canadiens for the Memorial Cup, and they wouldn't play us because they had everything to lose, nothing to gain. And the chief scout at the time for Detroit Red Wings was Jimmy Skinner, and he figured that we would have beat them guys.
Yeah.
And we said we had a couple overage players, we would drop them, we wouldn't use them guys. So never happened, but it was too bad. We'd have loved to.
Well, out east, we'll give you another chance if you ever want to,
Yeah, that's
play against us here.
Anyhow.
But we're going to go back in history again.
Yeah,
because
that's great.
There's some beautiful things that we wanted to just chat about. You made this sash.
Yeah, we have some Sash Looms. I don't know if that's the right word to say. You can make them. They're quite a thing where you.
Well, loom like that.
Yeah, like where you got to weave everything through. Like me and my wife made this in Nepal on that loom. We come there, and I brought 3 of them home. Those looms.
How long did it take you?
And it took us 8 hours to make this.
Wow.
Because it's all pretty well together. Like it's these are like these sashes. Like I say, they're just decorative. For today but the Métis, like I'm saying. long time ago, they were longer, and they used to wrap themselves up pretty good, because if, like I'm saying, like for my great-grandfather, working on the York boats, if he would have had a hernia, like they probably would die on the trail. So they had to make sure that never happened. So most Métis were short, stocky, and well muscled, so they, it was easier for them to carry stuff. They didn't have, like a tall person would, their backs might give out or whatever. So the Métis were actually built for that kind of work. But it was important, these sashes, because they also used them for tow ropes, whatever they wanted, So that's part of it.
Well, see, I always knew that they were used as a support.
Yeah.
But I never knew as a tow rope.
So you tie them good, and they could use them for tow ropes, anything, because they're strong. Like, they're all well knitted, and and how they made them back then, I'm not quite sure. But it took me and my wife, Diane. She's Métis also. Yeah. And she's also a niece of Cuthbert Grant as well.
Okay.
But she's not related to Riel that I know. Yeah. But
and you have La Jamodière.
That's right, Jean, the big street in Winnipeg Boulevard there. Yeah. That was my great-grandfather with a few grades on top of that. Yeah, Jean-Baptiste La Jamodière. That's
and the Metis Sash, the colors, are the representative, like in all the First Nations.
Yeah, not First Nations, but Métis. Now they're saying, like, a lot of people put they put beads on them, so it depends on what family they belong to. I don't know really how that came about, but they recognize the colors. Because the colors may have been the good times, some of the bad times, and whatever, so they kind of put them in. So certain families may adopt a certain color of sash. When me and my wife made this, we didn't really, we just kind of went with the colors. Yeah, we just kind of, as we melted, we just put them on, because you go around with these colors here, around the loom, and then you have to weave through. So I don't know, I can't even really tell you, it's been so long since we made this, I don't even think we remember how to make them, you know, anymore. But this one here is homemade. Yes. And the one that I'm wearing here is just a bottom one. The Métis Federation gave that one to me, probably. See, it has similar colors in it, but not the same quite pattern.
And I'm glad you mentioned the color blue as opposed to red, because I know growing up I was more familiar with red, and so it's kind of interesting. And then you also brought a few other things that you wanted to show us from the land.
Yeah, for sure. Like we had said, like, the Métis people are quite the gatherers. That's how they did. That's they weren't they would always gather. Like, that was prepare for the winter. So anyway, a couple weeks ago I happened to go down to Boggy Creek and do some riding around on my quad with my brother and my cousin from town here, Debbie Peaver. She's married to my cousin. She's my cousin. She's married to Kelly Peaver, her husband. So we all went and we picked some of these Puckons. They're called Puckons, and nuts. But that's the terminology that the Métis use around there that I know, Puckons. So they're like a hazelnut or a pecan, like a pecan nut. And this is how they grow. They grow on the trees, hang down in clumps. There could be 3 or 4 hanging down, and you pluck them off. They're easy to pick. And the trees are anywhere from 5 maybe to 15 feet high. And it seems like the higher ones grow bigger, a little bigger. These are small. And so you dry them, and these are pretty dry already. They're actually, you could crack these open and you can eat the nut inside. It's much about the same size as that.
Yeah, wow.
I'll let you taste one out.
Okay, yeah.
I'll see how that goes.
Well, we're going to put these back here.
All right, perfect.
And then I think the grand finale is your beautiful song, if you wouldn't mind playing for everybody in the country.
Yeah, I'll have to go get my guitar now then.
Yeah.
I will talk a little bit about it before I play it, because I want to...
Once again, we want to thank everybody for taking part in Culture Days. It's been a really challenging year this year for all of us, but I sort of thought we wouldn't be able to offer any events, and we refuse for there not to be a Culture Days this year in our area as in the rest of Canada. So we wish everybody a wonderful Culture Days and all the best in 2020.
Yes, well, Crystal, this song is, like I said, my grandmother, when I was a young boy, 14, maybe 13, 14 years old, gave me this song and the words to it, because I played music, you know. So anyway, over time, the historians kind of figured that Louis Riel didn't write this, but this song was, like I said, he was a cousin to my grandmother's dad, so there's some discrepancy on whether he wrote, because some of the middle verses are taken out of folk songs from down east.
Okay.
But no doubt he did. But at the same time, when he realized that he was going to hang in 1885, he wrote this song, and he used some of the words from them for the folk songs. And but this last verse is definitely his. That didn't come out in no books. That was how he felt. Like he says, "Death makes us all die, and we all each have our turn. I'm better to die a brave man, because we all die one day." So that's all. I'll sing you the song, but I'll translate it first. I'll tell you what I'm singing about in English first. Like it says, it's on the field of battle where there's crime and pain, and it makes his heart sad, eh? So when he receives a letter from his dear mother, he doesn't have no pen or no ink to write back to her. So he takes his pen knife and he slits his wrist to get some blood to write a letter to his mother. See, these are the verses that they said he might have stole from a folk song from way down east, from 1600 or whenever those songs were written. So when she receives this writing in blood from him, she of course becomes alarmed, and she grabs all his brothers and sisters, and they kneel on the ground and pray for their brother who's in the army. So then the last verse, he says, "Death makes us all die, and we all each have each comes our turn. So I'm better to die a brave man, because we all die one day." So this is how the song goes, and the tune is somewhat mine, but I have a little influence from the Carrier and Butler families, you know. So from around there, the older people. So anyway, it goes like this. C'est au champ de bataille qu'on voit crime et dole. On voit que d'autres parlent qui fait saigner mon cœur. On voit que d'autres parlent qui fait saigner mon cœur. Quand je reçois cette lettre de mon cher maman, j'avais ni plume ni encre pour pouvoir les écrire. Ah, j'ai pris mon canif, je l'ai trempé dans mon sang pour écrire en lettres à mon cher maman. Quand elle reçoit cette lettre, cette écriture ensemble, ses yeux béants de larmes, son cœur s'en va mon âme. J'ai dû canter appelant tous ses enfants, priez pour votre frère qui est au régiment. Mourir, faut tous mourir, tout chacun viendra son tour. J'aime mieux mourir en brave, faut tous mourir un jour. J'aime mieux mourir en brave, faut tous mourir un jour.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
Happy anniversary, everybody from the Métis community.
Yes, I'm so happy to be able to do this. My family used to say, my uncles especially, you have to carry this stuff on.
So important. Thank
Yes.
you, Ron.
Thank you for having me.